So let's just quickly have a look at what SEO is and why it's important for you to consider using it in your business. I think one of the things that is, with anything like this, because it's a little unknown, there's a lot of misinformation out there about what SEO actually is. And I want you to think about SEO as a process of making changes or improvements to your website to change the rankings that you're currently getting. Now, in the text above my head there, it says to better the rankings, but you might be ranking for something you don't want to be. So, you want to make website changes so your website is performing in the best possible way to attract the right people to your website. And that's all SEO is. So it's just about making changes. And some of those changes on your website, some of those are in your website, so the back end, and some of those things are off your website, just on the internet. These are changes that you can make that really affect the way that the search engines rank your website. Now, when I talk about search engines, I'm talking about things like Google. So when you do a search in Google, that is a search engine. Now, Google is the main one we're going to sort of talk about today because Google is the one that most people use. But it could be Bing, Yahoo. What's the other one? The Explorer. There's a few different ones out there. But the main one is Google, and Google is where almost 58% of traffic comes from that's going to websites. So we'll look at those stats in a second. But that's what SEO is. So why is SEO important? Well, I always like to think about it like this. If you're not doing it, your competitors probably are. And if your competitors are doing SEO, the likelihood is that they're getting all of the traffic. And, if there's search traffic, if you think about, the way that marketing works, there's a whole bunch of search traffic there. You've got to try and attract those to your business to turn them into leads. And until they're attracted to your business, you're never going to make a sale. You're never going to make any money out of that traffic. It is just there. So the search engine's already got all the traffic. We already know that people typically go to Google to search for something. And so we know that they're already there, then what we need to do is try and get our website in a position where we can attract that traffic to our website. Now, our website has to be built in a way that it then turns that traffic into a lead and then into a customer. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but not a lot. Mostly what we're going to talk about today is just how do you make sure that your website shows up on the first page of Google? Because my feeling is if it's not early in the search results, you're just not going to get the traffic. Now, what happens is that you can build a website, and maybe if you can pop your website addresses into the chat box for me, just if you can put those in there if you want to volunteer, and we'll have a look at some of your websites. But don't worry, I'm not going to rip them apart or anything. I'm actually going to help you and give you some free tips and advice if you pop them in there. Now, if you think about why you built your website in the first place, most people build their website because they want it to be a lead generator. They want to attract traffic to it. They want to send potential customers to it to showcase their product. And originally, a website was sort of, I guess, a replacement for a brochure. So if you're a bit older like me, we used to have, thank you for that, Tim, for sharing that. We used to have, a brochure that we'd hand out at networking events and we give to people. These days, I can imagine if you were a printer, you probably don't print many brochures anymore. Mostly, most of people's marketing dollar would go into setting up their website. So they'd set it up as a brochure. Now, we also need to use our website as a marketing tool to attract traffic to it. So it can't just be a stagnant brochure. It needs to be something that's built in such a way that it attracts traffic to it. So that's why SEO is important. And once again, if you're not doing it, I can guarantee that your competitors will be. Now, here's a report from Ahrefs. Now, Ahrefs is one of two major tools in the world that agencies use. And this is the tool that I use and you'll see this when I share my screen shortly, and I'll share this tool and we'll do some studies of a few different websites. But what they do is they actually, being one of the two biggest in the world, they gather the stats from all of the websites that people are scanning through their tool. And you can see here that Google represents 57.8% of web traffic driver, right? So if you think about that, that means that almost 60% of the traffic that's being driven to websites is from Google. Now, I see so many people putting a lot of time and effort into Facebook, YouTube, not so much YouTube, but definitely Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all these social media platforms, yet they represent a very small amount of traffic getting passed on to websites. Unlike Google, most of those social media platforms actually don't want you to take the traffic off of their platform and onto your website. In fact, they'll penalize you for it. So if you try this little test for a while, just get with your business Facebook page, continually post links taking people off of the platform, and I guarantee you less people will see your posts over time. The reason for that is because Facebook makes its money from ads, and so they want to make sure that people stay on the platform to see the ads and click on the ads. Now, that doesn't mean that Google doesn't make most of its money from ads. In fact, 98% of Google's revenue is from people clicking on ads. So we know that Google is known for making money from advertising, but those ads always take them off of Google to somebody's website, typically or a landing page. And so Google's whole methodology is to take people off of their platform. So they're okay doing that. And what they want is they want to give the user an amazing experience. So when they search for what it is they're looking for, whether they've got a problem, maybe they're looking for a plumber near me, whatever it might be, what they're doing is they're wanting to make sure that the results that show up are as relevant as possible, because they want to make sure next time you're looking for something, you come back to Google, and that you don't go to Yahoo, or that you don't go to Bing, or that you don't go to any of those other ones. So that's really why it's such a big thing. So this is why SEO is so important, because Google is going to continue to send traffic to your website. So why bother? Now, you might be wondering if it's worth it. And this is a conversation that I've seemed to have with a lot of different people when it comes to paying somebody or even investing your own time to learn SEO. And I always say with anything in life, there's three options when it comes to costs. The first option is to do nothing. Okay. And there's a cost to that. Okay. The cost of doing nothing is probably greater than you think. It's not as easy to quantify though. So people tend to not think about it as a cost, but there is a cost of doing nothing. Imagine in 5 years' time, if, most website traffic, and let's say 90% of it is driven by Google, and you didn't put any effort into SEO. Well, I can guarantee you that your competitors, there will be some of your competitors are already onto it. And we'll have a look at this shortly when we use the tool. Competitors are already using SEO to drive traffic to their website. So if you're not, the cost for you is you're going to miss out on that web traffic. And only you know what that cost is, right? The second option, which is also a cost, is then for you to learn how to do it yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you're interested in it, if it's something that you're passionate about, and you've got a bit of a technical flair to you, there's plenty of SEO courses out there. There's plenty of free resources. There's lots of things that you can do to learn. Even today, what I teach you today will help most of you out if you just start doing some of the things I'm going to teach you today over the next 90 days. So, you could do it yourself, but you've got to be willing to invest your time and you'll still have to spend a bit of money on courses and some tools, right? Because some of the tools that you need to use are going to, you need to pay for. And so there's a cost to that. The third option is the cost of having somebody like an agency do it for you. And so that's always one of the things that I think a lot of people are a bit worried about. But when I show you how much organic traffic you can actually get from doing good SEO, it'll probably change your mind as to whether or not you think it's a worthwhile investment. So you may be wondering if it's worth it. I think absolutely it is. If you do nothing, you can guarantee you will get left behind. We are, if you think about future-proofing your business, we are in the digital age. People are using digital to search for things, find things, learn about things. This webinar is a classic example, right? You've all tuned into a live webinar today. It's digital. Here we are. G'day, Andrew. Thanks for joining us. All right. So here's some, real big benefits of SEO. First of all, you'll see more traffic if you're ranked higher in search engines. And I'm going to show you that today when I jump into the tool. But pretty much once you get onto page 2 of Google, you don't get any traffic. Okay. So, you need to be page 1. Now, you may not be able to get onto page 1 for your main search term or keyword because it might be super competitive. So for example, we've just launched the new digital marketing company. It would be almost impossible for me to rank on page 1 for the search term digital marketing. And the reason for that is because, in that industry, everybody is already doing SEO. And there's some people that have been doing SEO for 10 years. To overtake them is going to be very difficult. Now, having said that, if I want to get on the first page, I still can. I just need to be smarter about what keywords I choose. And I'm going to show you that shortly. So you've got to work out what traffic you want to get, but you'll definitely get more traffic if you can get the right results showing up in the search engines for different searches. And people are lazy, right? They tend to always click on one of the first results. And so being at the top of the search results will earn you more clicks. Now, depending on what device you're on, typically on Google, there will be about 8 organic results on page 1. and pay, positions 1 to 4 get the majority of the clicks. They get much more clicks than any other positions. And once you're on page 2, well, in fact, if you want to hide, the best place for you to hide is on page 2 of Google because nobody goes there. So, the reality is that, and we'll have a look. I'll show you the numbers, right? A lot of people, you might go, well, I go there, but I'll show you the numbers in a second. Thank you. So Tim shared his web address. If you do want me to bring your website up using this tool, it'll show you a lot of information about your website. So don't be afraid. I'm not going to rip it apart or anything. I'm going to actually help you, give you some free tips and advice on what you can do to improve your website. So if you do want me to also do a quick review of your website live, because it's good to have some live examples, and just pop it into the chat box for me. And when we get to that section, I will do that. Okay. So the other thing I love about SEO, it's very leveraged. So unlike social media, so if you think about like if you did an email blast might get you a lot of sales or inquiries one-off, but it only works for that, few days after the email blast, and then it slowly peters away. Same thing for an ad. You've got to keep putting the money into the ad for it to continue to deliver. A Facebook post, an Instagram post, a Pinterest post, a LinkedIn post, they disappear very, very quickly. However, if you do a search result for anything, and once again, we'll have a look. I'll show you an article that I wrote back in 2014 that is still on the first page of Google. And this is the thing, is it's 7 years, nearly 8 years down the track, and something I wrote 8 years ago is still delivering me organic traffic every single month to my website. And this is the benefit. I think it's underrated. It is super leveraged. And if you think about it, it's a bit like planting a crop in a farm. You might, and I think this is why so many people don't do it. You've got to go out and sow the seeds. So you've got to prepare the crop. You've got to sow the seeds. You've got to water them. And then you've got to wait and wait and wait and wait. And, it could be 12 months before you actually see the results from the work that you did. And because of that delay, I think that puts a lot of people off. But what it does is it's a perpetual crop. So once it starts to deliver, it just regrows every single year. It just keeps growing. And especially if you tend to it, if you look after that crop and you trim it and so I'll talk to you a little bit about how you can keep your content relevant and update your website. So those articles or posts or things that you put on your website will continue to rank really well with Google. It's very, very leveraged. So even if you pay an SEO agency, you could stop paying them after 12 months and you'll still get the results for many, many months, if not years to come. And so very, very leveraged way of generating leads. The next thing is it's free search traffic. Well, I say free, but that's a bit tongue in cheek because there is a cost to create content and to do SEO. Like I said, you've either got to invest your time or you've got to pay somebody else to do it. But essentially though, you'll end up getting free traffic because at some point it's so leveraged that the work that you do once is going to deliver so many times over down the track. So if you want free search traffic, the only way to really get it is through doing SEO. And it's such a, it's such a big benefit to any business. Now, I want to quickly just run over the 4 parts of SEO, and then we'll talk about what parts you can do pretty easily. And I'm going to give you some tools today that are free tools that you can use to help you do the work that you need to do to get started. And in fact, some of you, depending what niche you're in or what industry you're in. In fact, can you just put that in the chat box for me? Just put in what industry you're in for me. But it will depend on what niche or industry you're in as to how easy it will be for you to rank for a certain keyword. And we'll have a look at being able to ascertain how easy it will be as well. Okay, I'll show you how to work out what keywords to use today as well. So pretty exciting. But let's look at the 4 different parts. So the first part of SEO is on-page SEO, which is essentially your website. So it's making sure that all your pages are well written. Now, in the old days, if you've got an older website, they used to build websites and they used to do what was called keyword stuffing. In some cases, what they would do is they would put the keyword on the page several times and make the keyword the same color as the background. So it couldn't actually be seen, but Google's robots could still crawl it and read it. I think that anybody doing that these days, that's called a black hat. So if you've ever heard of the term white hat and black hat, white hat is doing the right thing that Google likes, and black hat is doing things to trick the system. And what happens is every year, Google will do a core update, and that update will be to stop the black hatters. So if you have got a website that's got this color, this color coded or hidden text on it, for example, you actually get penalized for that now. So you've got to be really, really careful. So you want to make sure that your pages are all well written. You don't want to deliberately stuff it with keywords so they're not readable. You want to make sure that it's a good experience when people deliver your website. If a page is not well written, it will not rank. Google doesn't want to give people a bad experience. So you want good content. You want the right keywords on there. And regular content as well. So having a blog or something like that is very, very important. And we'll look at the benefits of that shortly and how that works in SEO. The other thing is you want to make sure you're using meta tags and titles with keywords. Now, meta tags are sort of saying are less relevant these days as to what they were, but I'm going to show you why they're still very relevant to getting traffic to your website. Because remember, we're talking about getting you up on the listing on Google, but we also want to get the click, right? We want to earn the click to our website. And so the meta tag really helps us do that. So does the title. And so there's some little tricks that you can do to make sure that all the information on your website is going to help the search engines decide where to place your website when somebody searches for something. And so keywords are the key thing. The other thing is even things like images, right? So when you put an image on your website, the name of that image is being ranked. So you want to make sure that you put keywords in those images if they're relevant. Even if people aren't doing an image search, the image is still, if it's got a keyword in it, and it's called an alt tag. So you might see where you can put an alt tag on a website. Also, though, even the image name. So I've seen people uploading 12345.jpg. You're better off naming that with a keyword or something that's relevant to what the picture is. So it does turn up in search results. And that even if people are doing an image search, they could end up on your website because they're looking for something. And then once they're on your website, you can do retargeting. Maybe they'll opt into a lead magnet. There's all sorts of things that you can do then. So on-page SEO is the first part of SEO that needs to be taken care of. The second part is then technical SEO. Now, this one's a little bit harder for you to do. Depending on your own technical skill set, right? And you want to make all the technical parts of your website better so it will rank higher in search engines. So a big factor is how quickly it loads. And so we see a lot of people that build their own websites using things like WordPress, and then they add lots and lots of plugins in because it gives you the functionality of some high level coded website. The problem with it, every time you put a plugin onto your WordPress website, it actually slows it down. It slows down its loading time. Things like image size is something that you could definitely do. That's a technical SEO. If you've got large images that take a long time to load, you can actually reduce those image sizes down. And most image editing software now will allow you to export them for web. Right. So usually what people do is they'll put an image on their website that is what's called 300 DPI or dots per inch. That's a printing quality. On the web, you only need 72 or maybe 144 dots per inch for a retina display. And your image size doesn't need to be very big because no one's screen is big enough to be able to really show a full-sized image out of a DSLR camera, for example. So, make sure that you're resizing your images so they're small. And you want them to be, small enough that they load fast. And I'm talking about in kilobytes, not megabytes. So you might try and make them under 250 kilobytes each. And that way they'll load nice and fast. So things like that is technical. You want to remove errors. What happens on a website quite often is that over time, people make changes to their website. And you might have, let's say you have a page with a link to another page on it. Let's say you've got a privacy policy, for example, in the footer of your website, there's a privacy policy, and that link is going to a page which is called /privacy, and you update that. And for some reason, you decide to update the URL and you don't go back and you don't change that link on that previous page. Well, now you've got what's called a broken link, and Google knows how many of those you've got, as do all the search engines. And if your website's got too many broken links, then from a technical point of view, it's going to be less likely to rank as well. So broken links is another thing as well that technically need to be fixed up. So there's quite a few things to do. The last thing I'll touch on with technical SEO is making sure that your website is optimized for mobile devices and tablets. And so you really want to make sure that it's what's called responsive. So there is an app called Responsiveness, which I'll show you shortly. It's a free app. You can put your website in there and it'll show you how it works. In a mobile device. You can simulate phones, tablets, different types of phones, different orientations, etc. So that's the more technical stuff. So that's the second part of SEO. The third part of SEO is getting a bit trickier now. This is called off-page SEO. So remember before at the beginning, I said that search engines are looking for certain signals. to decide how they rank your website when someone does a search? Well, some of those signals are things like that fast, how fast is it? What keywords are they? How long do people stay on your pages? How relevant is the information? Is there video to watch? Is there other, do they click through to other pages? But a lot of the signals they're looking for now aren't even on your website. And this is where SEO gets a little bit trickier, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that you understand what type of signals the search engines are looking for. And one of the major factors is, are people sharing your content? Number one, right? So, if you've got share buttons on your content, that is a way to help people share it. So are people sharing your content? Is it a good piece of content? So for example, you might write a really nice article about how to do something that's super helpful, and then people are posting that link around the internet. Well, the search engines know that. And so if that's happening, that's a signal that your website is a good website. Another way is for you then to have links back to your website. So these are called backlinks. You might see that term above my head there. It includes earning backlinks. Now, what a backlink is when somebody else refers to your website from their website. So for example, let's say I have an article on my website of the top 10. I can see that Tim has said he's in videography, website creation. So he's in videography, for example. I might have an article about the 7 reasons why video is important in your marketing. And then maybe Tim's got an infographic on his website that's really cool, that has this, the 7 steps. So I might just link it back to Tim's website. That would earn him a backlink. Now, what you want is these backlinks. You can't just go spamming, directories and forums, etc., with your link everywhere, because Google knows the quality of each of those links, right? So if you get, let's say, the Sydney Morning Herald, for example, which is a major newspaper in Sydney, let's say they link to your website, then that's a much higher quality link than some directory called Aussie Businesses directory that just about anybody can submit, which might be a free directory. So, it depends on the type of link that you've got as to what signal that sends to a search engine. So you need a mixture of them all. You do need to be in the directories. It does help. But the best type of links to get are those that are really hard to get, because 2 things happen. Number one is it sends a different signal to the search engines, but you also know it's going to be hard for your competitors to get. So a good place to start with that is think about all the people that you know or are related to or work with, and ask yourself, do they have articles online that you could write something that they could link back to you? So a classic example, and I'm just thinking off the cuff, let's say, I'll use Tim as an example because he's going to let us use his website in a minute for us to do a bit of a quick live audit on. Let's say Tim's brother works for Westpac and he's in the marketing department, and Westpac Bank have a business tips on their website with articles that are published every single month, which they do, by the way. Most banks do. He could say to his brother, can I write an article? And his brother goes, yep. And so he writes an article for Westpac, and he'll get a link back to his website. Now, that would be hard for most people to get, because Tim would have earned that link because of the relationship, because he's family. But this is the way to think about it, So I always say to people, if you want to get smart with SEO, with backlinks, the first place to start is to go through all the people that you know, have a look at, where they work and what sort of platforms or what opportunities they have online. And if you can submit a good quality article for their website, then do it. And it's called guest posting or guest blog posting. This is what it's actually called. And it's where you can, and so this is why you might submit articles to other types of publications like I think SavvySME.com, for example, or entrepreneur.com, or any of these publications, any websites that rank really well. So even if you do a search online, have a look at the publications that rank really well on page 1 for a search about something that's maybe related to you or targeted at your target market. And if they show on page 1 and they take guest articles, and you'll know that just by looking at their website, then submit a guest article. Now, a lot of websites will actually have a link down the bottom in the footer saying, apply to be a guest contributor. So you can always do that. If they don't have that, just go through the contact page and send a message to you and say, I'd love to submit an article. Sometimes it's even better to have the article already pre-written. So I've written this amazing article, let them know it's been published nowhere else, because they won't want duplicate content. And then you can submit that article and hopefully somebody will publish it, and they'll link it back to your website. So all you do is just say, you publish this article, all I want is for you to link back to my website in the bio. So that's some off-page SEO for you. So essentially, there's some of the signals that they're looking at, along with, people ask me about social media. Social media is not a big player in it, but from what we've seen with our clients, and from just different statistics on the net, is that consistent social media use is helping with SEO. And the reason for that, I think, is because Google is all about customer experience. So if you've got a social media channel and you post on there once every 2 months, the search engines will likely know that. And what that means is that they're going to see that as inconsistency in the way that you deliver your content. So people say, how often should I post? I don't think it's about how often. I think it's about good quality and consistently. So once a week, once a month, or whatever it might be, once a day, whatever you choose, but make a good quality content, but do it consistently, because that's what they're looking for. They want that consistency. All right. Now, the fourth type of SEO is then what's called local SEO. And this is not going to suit everybody. It depends on your business, but most businesses need local SEO. And this will help you rank for things locally, like people that search for such and such near me, or in the city name. So, for example, if I was a smash repair, if I was looking for smash repairs, I might put smash repairs near me, or smash repairs Parramatta. And so I want to make sure I'm looking at my local SEO as well. And some of that is not actually done on your website, but you'll use something like Google My Business. And Google My Business is a tool that a lot of businesses do not realize even exists. So I want to just give you that prompter right now, that if you haven't set up or claimed your Google My Business listing, you need to do it. Google Plus is long gone. So if you do have a Google Plus link on your website, remove it, because Google Plus doesn't exist. And this is the sort of thing I'm talking about with the technical SEO. If you've got old links on there to things that don't exist anymore, the search engines know this, right? And they're going to penalize you for it. So it's one of those signals. But Google My Business is a great way to optimize your business for local SEO. So you can put all the locations into Google SEO that you service. You'll have your web address on there. You can put articles, photos, information, products, and you want to, once again, Google is looking for consistent updates on Google My Business. You can't just set it up once and leave it. It needs to be maintained and looked after. So local SEO is really important, making sure that you have methodologies for doing local SEO, including things like getting people to check in. So if you've got an actual store, when people come in, prompt them to check in on social media, or, leave a review with Google My Business or something like that. All of that is really good local SEO that you should be doing. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at some examples so I can show you live. I'm going to change my screen over to sharing my other monitor. So let me just do that now. Have you got any questions at this point in time? Let me know too if you're happy for me to, if you want to volunteer your website, then we can have a look at it as well. All right, so let's jump into screen 2. Share this one here. All right, so you should now be able to see my screen. Just let me know in the chat box if you can see my screen okay, my computer screen. That's our website that's up there at the moment. Just let me know in the chat box that you can see that all right, please. Yep, great, fantastic. All righty, so I'm going to show you a few free tools that you can use to sort of just see how your site is performing. And I'm going to use, Tim has given us his website as an example. So I'm just going to copy and paste that in now. Thank you, Tim, for that. Really appreciate that. Okay. Good way to give Tim's business a plug. Not only here live today on the webinar, but today on the recording. All right. So, Oculuma is the name of Tim's business. Hopefully I've pronounced that right. And you can see that he's set his website up. Nice menu at the top there. What we're going to do is we're going to put the URL in to the first tool. Now, this tool is called Website Grader. This is a tool that is free to use, and it's a tool that is created by HubSpot as a lead generator for them. So you just need to keep in mind that if you put your details in here, you're going to get emails from HubSpot trying to sell you their CRM. Now I'm going to put mine in there. I don't want to put Tim's in there. They'll send me an email, but I've been in there plenty of times. And this little tool just does a quick, sort of, I guess, a quick look at your website. It's not very in depth, but it just gives you some real high level information about your website. So you can see here, it said this site is really good, but you can see performance is 14 out of 30. So straight away, there's some technical stuff there that probably needs to be changed. And you can do this with any website, by the way, but it's a great way for you to sort of see where you need to improve things. So you can see here, page size, so far so light. So you can see that that's really good. Page requests, you can see room for improvement. And it's all about, you can see it makes the website slower. So you can see that's making the website slower. Page speed, you can see too slow. Now, if you think about when a page loads, you're really, what you've got to think about is how long do you think somebody is willing to wait, right, for a page to load? So 9.5 seconds is too slow. And so you really need to make sure that you speed your website up there, Tim. You can see that the browser caching, minimal page redirects, minified JavaScript and CSS is all good. You can see image size out of place. So images can take a long time to load. Use responsive images or SVGs to optimize your images for different screen sizes. So I'm not sure. I mean, you've got a big video in the background there. That's probably, that image there might be large. I would just go through and make sure that your images are sized correctly for, to be optimized on the internet. So just go through and just double check that they're all good, Tim. That's probably the best way to do that. So that's a good tool there where you can quickly go through and just have a look and see how things are going. SEO then, 25 out of 30. So you can see it does 4 different spots here. You can see that permission to index. So when I talked about technical SEO, that's one of the things you have to make sure is that your website is, definitely submitted to the search engines for indexing, because you want to be able to make sure that Google can find you. Okay, and so it's a little bit technical, but you can Google how to do it. And set up what's called Google Search Console, and it sort of all happens from there. Meta descriptions, so you can see meta descriptions tell people what your page is about in search results. I mentioned that before, so you can see Tim's parts, which is good. Content plugins, so search engines can't always understand content that relies on browser plugins such as Flash, so good to see that there's none of those. And descriptive link text. So descriptive link text helps visitors know what they'll see if they click the link. Click here doesn't cut it. So I'm not sure where the links are that it's talking about, but you want to make sure it's what's called anchor text. So, this is good because it says book your shoot now, but maybe it's in your blogs or something. I don't know where it might be, where it might say click here. Let's just have a look and see. I can't really see any click here's, but there would be somewhere, but you can see here how you drop us a quick message. That's a better use of a link. So this is anchor text. So this wording here, just drop us a quick message, is the actual anchor text. It tells us, what I'm going to see when I click on it. So in the previous blog. So you might have previous blog as the link if that's what it's going to go to. There's things like that is what when it comes to link descriptions is what it's looking for. It's looking for your links not to be tricking anybody, because that's what's called a black hat strategy. So you really want your links to be showing, customers exactly what they're going to get when they click on that particular thing. So that's what that is. Mobile, you can see 30 out of 30. So let's just quickly do that test as well. So the tool that I'm going to show you now is called Responsiveness.com. Once again, this is a free tool. All you do is put the site address up here and you press go. And what Responsiveness is going to do now is it's going to simulate looking at that website on a mobile phone. It's going to simulate looking at it both portrait and landscape orientation. You can see this is an Android Pixel 2, so a bit bigger. Same thing again, iPhone 6 to 8. iPhone, you can see bigger ones. An iPad, both ways. And so you can see that it shows you straight away how it's going to look in different things. And you can see that Tim's website is definitely responsive. Another way you can do it is we just break his website out for a second, is to just move your screen around and just see what happens to the text as you move around and images. And what you want is you want the website to move around and for the text to fit in. So if I go back to that news articles here, we just click on something, you can see it's not sitting in there really nicely, but you can see it's still responsive. And the reason why that's so important is because if somebody visits your website on a mobile device, you want to make sure that it shows up properly and it displays correctly. Otherwise, the studies have shown that if it doesn't display correctly, people will take off pretty quickly. So that's good. Okay, let's just go back to the website creator. So that's your mobile device, says it's all good. Font size is good. Tap targets is good and responsive. And then security, 10 out of 10. And so what you want is a HTTPS. So that's a certificate. So if I just go to our website for a second, you'll see this little padlock here, and you'll see it says HTTPS. We go to yours, you can see it's HTTPS. Can I force yours to go to non-secure? Let's have a look. Okay, so you can see now that I've taken the S out, it says not secure. Okay, and so what happens is a web browser doesn't like non-secure websites. So the S, that HTTPS, is when you buy what's called an SSL security or certificate. And it means the website is then secure. Okay, and it should automatically redirect to the secure site when somebody goes to your website. And once again, the search engines are looking for that because they don't want to send somebody to an insecure site. So you can see that security is really good. You can then just see, what should I do next? You can see that there's just a few recommendations here as well, but it's very light on. There's not much information here at all. For you to seriously get a list of what needs to be fixed, you need to get a much more in-depth report done with all the errors, etc. But this just gives you a real good high level. As you can see, you've scored 79, which is out of 100, which is fine, which is a good score. So the website's working pretty well.